So if they want to know what happened with the Standard Committee and so on, why hold a press conference rather than do the proper thing? The Minister for Works and Housing can be called and can be questioned on measures which were taken in order to mitigate the circumstances and so on. And the Standard report will come up. You understand what I'm saying? So what is this huge drama? What is the drama meant to achieve? Sometimes I get the impression that anytime Standogbe's name is mentioned, somebody must create some drama.
I don't think that's what we need now. The bipartisan probe into the flooding. I think it was a disaster that happened, natural disaster, even though they may be human contributing factors to natural disaster. People have often blamed climate change. People have blamed a lot of things to the change in weather patterns and the number of rainfall the quantity of rainfall that we recorded. So definitely this is not the first time it has happened. So I believe that if this keeps happening, there should be a human element in terms of policy, in terms of decisiveness and commitment and the discipline to tackle it once and for all. And also, this is not the first time this particular crisis we've got that happened. And it is not peculiar to just a particular government. It has happened across governments since independence. And if you look at what happened 2 days ago, it wasn't that the president didn't take any decisive measure. The president quickly met his cabinet and then they made a request to the finance committee of parliament, and they approved $350 million for that money to, I think, some
dollars or cedis.
Cedis. 350 million Ghana cedis for that money to be given to NADMO to improve on its evacuation and helping the poor, distributing relief items, and then all those things. And then the other bit to go to the Minister of Works and Housing for them to continue desilting, and then the choke gutters and all those other things that have caused, that has been the human
so 200 element. Goes to the relief, interventions, and then 150.
So I think it was 150 from the initial. I think the initial request was 300, and the 150 was supposed to go to NADMO, and then 150 to go to Minister of Works and Housing and other allied agencies. Okay. So when they met the the finance committee, there was the call that this just didn't happen in Accra. There are other areas that have been affected. So if they could up the money a bit so that could take care of all the flooding disasters in the country. So I think that was when the 50 was added. And the president didn't just stop there. The president also did an aerial tour with the people that were concerned, the Minister for Works and Housing and other government agencies, to assess the situation. And they realized that this is very critical. So the Constitution has a provision for agencies that can come together to manage National Disaster Committee, to manage crises of this kind. And I think it's chaired by the Minister for Interior. And they also have representative and chief directors and the IGP and chief of defense staff from other sectors to be able to do that. So that particular National Disaster, it has been activated. And I think they definitely, very soon, you see relief items being distributed. You see people who have been affected taken care of. Do we need a bipartisan committee to look at this? I don't think so. I believe that the effort that government has put forward, it's not enough. I wish we had a lot of money to do enough. But drawing from this amount of money from the contingency fund suggests that if we could have had more than that, we would be able to do more. And I think it is also gradualist approach. So you start from somewhere, and as you move along, more things are done. I'm not sure what a bipartisan committee will do. Investigate why it rained, investigate why it rained under the NPP NDC government, why it should not rain, what human intervention should be done. I don't think that is needed. What is needed more is the effort to make sure that people, victims of this particular flood, are treated with the deserving human face. Their troubles are mitigated in a way so that we can move forward. So I think what government has done is the beginning of several other interventions that will come to mitigate this flooding crisis that we are facing. And I still think that it has to go back to these are largely reactive interventions because we didn't plan for it. But we still have to go back to put a lot of pressure on MMDAs and the officers that issue building permits. Even we have to go, even before that, we have to even go back to examine how we plan our cities. It is very important. Planning tells you where you are supposed to build, where you are not supposed to build. And then we now come to make sure we enforce the decisions that accompany the planning. So if you have a national plan, how to build and where not to build, and even when you are building your land, depending on the level of assessment of the area you are building, how much of the surface should be hard and how much should be green, so that it can absorb the amount of rainwater, whether we need rainwater harvesters in some area. So those kind of planning has to be done, and then we now take the right step to enforce them, not just having the plans and not enforcing them. The level of efficiency in our local government administrative systems, those who issue the building permits, do they inspect the land? Do they follow the processes when they issue the permit? Do they build the way they are supposed to build? What happens? The delay in issuing building permits is also a contributing factor, and that is also human. So you apply for a building permit, it takes forever, and people, maybe somebody has went and gotten some money and want to put in the line, stop paying rent, it delays. Sometimes some of them, even once you make payment for the processes to start, they say, oh, now that you've made payment, you can even go and start, because it takes time. Can't we be innovative and reduce the time limit or the delay that comes with it? Even if it means having a premium payment, we should do something about it. So moving forward, I think as we invest more in the kind of providing relief items and those, we should go back to the drawing board and make sure that we do the right thing as state institutions and agencies. We do the right thing as citizens who work in those particular offices, and then we make sure that some of these things are prevented. I think prevention is one of the best remedies we can have, rather than trying to cure them when they do happen. And I think the other thing I also want to say about this is that I understand this may occur under a particular government, whether NDC or NPP or any other P, but it is a national issue, and we have to depart from politicizing this issue and tackle it as a national crisis and see how we can deal with it. If that's the path we want to go, I think we can achieve a lot. And it doesn't matter which government is in power, this will stop. But if we want to take a partisan approach to dealing with these things, it's mad. Because if the same minority is calling for this, but the minority just left power 8 years ago, and are we saying that they were not flooding during... sorry, they have been in power. Sorry, they have been in power for 8 years. That's what I wanted to say. So are they telling us that they hadn't been flooding during that period? And what did they do? They were talking about, we saw in that particular government, we heard, allegedly, monies that were even meant to desilt so that this thing would stop, ended up in the bedroom of some government officials. So I don't think they have the moral right to call out this government, who has just been in power for less than 2 years, to do the things that they didn't start. Government is continuity. And what have they done that we can build on as successive government?
You don't see that call as a call for accountability, that people want to know what interventions government put in place 1 year ago to avert what happened on Monday. You don't think people really want to know what we did
what
last
interventions
year?
did they put in place when they were in
power? But you are now in power.
Years?
Let's forget.
Yeah, so we have started
a year ago.
We have started. We have started, and you've seen that kind of measures that has been put in place. This is temporary, but I do believe that this is a wake-up call for the government to put in a lot of measures to be able to depart from what we've had in the past, especially when it comes to the issue of flooding. And I believe His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama will definitely live up to the expectation and make sure that the right things are done.
Uncle Philip, we are waiting for more rains. We are told by GMET that between today and Sunday it's going to be heavier than what happened on Monday. I have not seen any indications. Nobody has given us where to run to in times of disaster or something. We talk about early warning signals. I don't know what your indications are at the back of the call from the minority.
Well, two things. First, like most people, we tend to check the weather thanks to the devices we have today. So we try to check the weather and see how things will go. So we all have a fair idea that we're going to be in a period of rains. And like you're saying, the metro people have informed us that this year the rains are going to be heavier than normal. What I've always spoken about is the preparedness of our local authorities to handle these situations which are going to come. That has been the issue. One thing I have often spoken about and hammered a lot about is how we cannot deploy for desilting of even just the drains. Because there's so much sedimentation in our drains, so much deliberate blockages of some of our drains that it worsens the situation. But I must say that lately I've noticed a bit more of that happening. So, yes, there's some effort going on to address the situation. It is not going to stop the rains. And the rains, when they're coming down, they don't care which party is in power. Now, the call by the minority, two calls. There should be a bipartisan, and then they want accountability on the money, how it's going to be used. On the bipartisan committee, I think it's it is an unnecessary call, a totally unnecessary call. We've had these rains before our independence. We've had situations where committees have worked on them, recommendations have been given, and all kinds of things. Let us revisit some of those things. Last year, the president set up a committee. That committee report must come out. We must hear what the committee recommends, what it suggests, what it has found out to help us address the situation. That one is essential. And also, when the majority calls that they want some explanation on how the money is going to be used, I agree with them. I agree with them, because if you consider what they themselves did the last time, I mean, the kind of reports we are hearing about what they did to some of the money, I agree with them that they should ask for accountability. The garage, I'll just read it. If you allow me, I'll just read something small here. The garage project, the money that was $350 million, they drew down about $150 million. They've given some breakdowns of how the money was used. About 11% of the money was actually deployed towards flood prevention. The rest of the money went into, even COVID, they used COVID. You see, so they themselves, they know how some of these things can go. So if they call for it, I agree with them. And while they are asking for the accountability, they too should begin to account properly for how the money was spent. You know, at the end of the day, it is money for the people of Ghana. You cannot go and misbehave, and then now when somebody is in charge, you start calling a. So we have to ensure that yes, it's a good call, but they must also live up to it. You know, these issues, when they come up, they must be addressed to the satisfaction of everybody. And anybody putting a government on its toes to ensure the job is done, it's a fair call. But we should not try to pretend certain things haven't happened and try to focus all the blame on. No. This Accra naturally has a problem by virtue of its geographical location and its geodetic formation. So we have these issues of challenges when it comes to heavy rainfall. We've had it over the years. We must make a conscious effort to address it, both in terms of our designs of our roads, pavements, structures, etc., and also our own human activities in the area. So, in terms of the call, yes, the committee that the president set up last year, we want to see what the results, what the recommendations are. And also, when the president goes about in a helicopter looking at it, there's nothing wrong with that. Presidents have done that over the years. And that is one of the ways of assessing some of these things. So we shouldn't reduce our politics to those petty levels. You know, that he was riding a helicopter. What should he ride in? I mean,
would the imagery not have been maybe perhaps better? Maybe after the aerial, you know, tour, go to the communities and see how the people are surviving. Would that not look much better?
You see, well, at the end of the day, you don't expect the president himself. I'm not going to speak for the president. But at the end of the day, you don't expect the president to do everything himself. He has ministers as well. He has local authority people. They too have to play their part. He has done it from one level. Others too must play their part. They have ministers, they are regional ministers, they are district chief executives. Let them too play their part.
Right. So can I just say that? So you see, if you do the aerial survey, it gives you a lot of, you can assess a wider area and the extent of damage than when you are walking. When you are walking, you are very limited, right? Yeah. So I think the aerial survey gave him a lot of opportunity to have a wider look at the level of damage. But beyond that, he didn't just keep quiet. He approved that from the contingency fund, this amount of money, 350 million, should be withdrawn to take care of the disaster management. And that's why Uncle Philip said we have state institutions, and we must allow those state institutions to work. So we have a national disaster committee that has been activated, provided for in the constitution, that has been activated. And they are working. They have started work very soon. They planning to very soon you see them. And I think that's how. I think you see them by today, close of day today. So what I want to say is that it's not like the president shouldn't centralize everything around him, so that he's here. He's one man. He can do everything. And tasking and allowing his ministers to work also give them the ability to be seen doing their work rather than he monopolizing everything.
I'm Pratt.
Just, first of all, one very small comment. Being president in Ghana is being at the center of everything. All the institutions of state work up to the president. Indeed, yesterday I was reading the Constitution again. You know, I read it from time to time. And one of the things that I noticed was that even court rules must be approved by the president. The Chief Justice drafts them, but the Constitution says with the approval of the president. Okay, so if you're a president in Ghana, whether you like it or not, you are the center of everything. You understand? And that's an important point. Honorable, your colleagues in Parliament, the minority, I'm not so clear about what they are demanding. Are they demanding the publication of a report they themselves have not seen and do not even know whether it exists? Is that their demand? Because I keep hearing that the Standogbe report must be made public. Is there a Standogbe report? Do they know? What is in that report? Because any responsible person calling for any document to be made public must know the content before. And from all indications, they appear to be saying that they don't even know what is in the report. So made public for what purpose? I don't understand. Besides, Parliament, there is nobody in Ghana, citizens and non-citizens alike, who in some way or the other cannot be summoned by Parliament. The president can be called to Parliament. No citizen of Ghana. That's how powerful Parliament is. Okay. So if they want to know what happened with the Standogbe Committee and so on, why hold a press conference rather than do the proper thing? The Minister for Works and Housing can be called and can be questioned on measures which were taken in order to mitigate the circumstances and so on. And the Standogbe report will come up. You understand what I'm saying? So what is this huge drama? What is the drama meant to achieve? Sometimes I get the impression that anytime Standogbe's name is mentioned, somebody must create some drama. And that's not governance. That's not good for us, you understand? The fixation with one personality is not good for us. In any case, you see, in 2019, this problem was re-identified. The problem of perennial flooding and so was re-identified. We went into negotiations with the World Bank and we costed what it would take in order to prevent flooding. 2019, we are in 2026. The World Bank made available to Ghana $350 million to solve the problem. As at now, according to the records which have been made public, only $150 million out of $350 million have been spent. Now, even that $150 million which has been spent, part of it was spent on fighting COVID, not on fighting flood. And so, the people who did this, what moral authority do they have to be raising questions today? 2019, 7 years ago, the problem was identified. $350 million was made available to solve the problem. They spent only 150. What happened to the 200 million? Even that 150 was not spent on fighting flood. And they have the effrontery to be making noise, to be asking questions. I can't believe it. And we encourage it. Mr. Atto is so busily encouraging it this morning. You're so busy encouraging this.
We are only discussing topical issues.
And this flooding problem, it didn't start yesterday. This government has been in power for 18 months, for God's sake, 18 months. Why? There are newspaper reports of floods in 1960. 1960. Why? Jerry Rawlings, he used to wear Wellington boots and to wade through floods and so on. He used to paddle canoes on the flood waters. Have you forgotten what happened at the second June, what was it?
2015.
Exactly. You know. Oh, so you know. You know. So what is this? There's a problem we have to address. Okay? That problem is a multi-dimensional problem. It has many aspects. It has an engineering aspect, has a planning aspect, it has all kinds of things. Even our building codes need to be revived. The kinds of residential buildings we are putting up today, which cannot allow the floor to soak water, shouldn't it change? Should we make regulations for harvesting of rainwater and so on? Mind you, water is an important national human resource. Water. Without water, there will be no life. Some countries like Tehran, Iran, they have a water shortage. It's a big problem for them. We have it in abundance and it is killing us. Others want a small part of the water we have to develop. They can't get. Does that make sense? So we need to have a holistic approach. And I believe in this, not bipartisan, multi-partisan approach to solving the problem. I believe in it. You understand? But those who seek equity ought to come with clean hands. You can't seek equity when your hands are so dirty. You understand what I mean? Yeah, this is a big problem. Facts. Yesterday I was going through the statistics and so on. This is the heaviest rain we've had in Accra for more than 30 years. The heaviest. It's not a normal problem. The heaviest rain we've had in Accra for more than 30 years. So we shouldn't make it sound like a normal, everyday problem and so on. Yes, I think we can do a lot more in order to affect it. Desilting alone, desilting would help, but it will not solve the problem. So desilting and all the other things which have been identified ought to be looked at in order to solve this problem. I am particularly lucky. My house is not nice. You know my house. My house is not nice. It's not in a plush area. I live in a small village. Even the road to my house is a problem. But it will never suffer flooding. In the dry season, you can come and laugh at my house and say, I don't live in a nice area. No problem. I don't live in shadow and so on. No problem. When the rain comes, you will wish to be in my house.
All right, okay, so let me just say this, that whilst we are dealing with the offshoot of what happened on Monday, 1,400 people, over 1,400 people are confirmed dead in Venezuela, right? The country is going through huge turmoil after following the two twin earthquake that rocked
Togo
the...
is also suffering from floods. La Côte d'Ivoire is also suffering from floods.
Right. So our heartfelt, condolences goes to all the families in Venezuela who are also, going under this trying moment. All right, so let's do some messages and then we'll be done for today. And I'll start off with Daniel Akpaliok, who writes from Sandema. He says, the National Day of Prayer was a demonstration of responsible leadership, not a diversion from the flood crisis. Governance demands both decisive humanitarian action and national spiritual reflection. My thoughts and prayers are with those who have lost loved ones, homes, and valuable property following the devastating floods. Daniel, thank you so much for that. This one says, good morning. Says, I think that the president's call at yesterday's Republic Day celebration for the youth to be wary of a menace of drug abuse was very much in order, very proper and fitting. Let us be careful in dismissing the messages that were shared with Ghanaians yesterday.
That you have this national disaster, fraud, people are dying, people's cars are being swept away and so on. Drug menace is the thing you address? It's also part of
That is coming from Albert from Adentan. Albert, thank you for that message anyway. Stephen from Kwabena says, I blame the NDC government and the AG for 60 months in office for not prosecuting malfeasance in many institutions like Garrett project. So why would the opposition not misbehave? All right, Stephen, thank you for that. This one is from Banyapan Balu Latif from Sisala West. It says, good morning to you and your panelists. I totally agree with Uncle Kwesi on the celebration of the Republican Day. The celebration should have been more reflective on the Republican Day, on our cultural practices, and more to the point, some brief history should be given on the of the importance of the Republican Day to serve as education for the youth. Thank you also for that message. This one is from Asanko. It says, talking about flooding, I wish to know what has happened to the alleged funds allocated to sanitation activities, some of which were allegedly found in somebody's bedroom. Asanko from Santa Maria. Asanko, I don't know. Okay. Good morning to this Pan-African TV. We are not TV Africa. Thanks to Father Kwesi Pratt. But why did he not suggest these brilliant plans to the president? Is he suggesting he's not listening? I'm Bafa. Okay, Bafa.
Just a small common journalist. My friend. how can I see the president?
All right, so Stephen said, good morning, David. The minority is still struggling to defend their loot, and the NPP communicators must stop annoying Ghanaians any further. The World Bank funds were meant for a specific project. They diverted $65 million to add to the over $340 million they received from the World Bank and IMF, and shared the money like my father's groundnuts. If any actual work was done, we will not be experiencing these disasters. NPP never again. Stephen Penn from WA sent it that. Stephen, thank you for your message. A lot of messages this morning. This one says, I'm so disappointed in the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, President Mahama, and his 15,500 military men. What is the use of the military in Ghana? They and their Commander-in-Chief. All right, okay, so our money just spent on them to go on United Nations. What is the problem? So people died in flood waters, no emergency declared, no defense for vulnerable and life-threatened citizens. Does the politician care about Ghanaians at all? But there's been call for some national emergency day or something. People are mooting that idea. I should have asked that. It escaped me. All right, Jomo Pokwasi Festus, he says, apart from the government not being proactive enough, one of the major reasons why the perennial floods and filth has become an albatross for the entire country is how we unfortunately treat this yawning as a national threat rather than a political agenda instead of a national concern. Instead of finding holistic, lasting solutions, we are politicking as usual. In a axe till when? John, thank you so much. Lastly, Musa Batwa, writing from Asawasi, he says, it is nauseating listening to this crop of minority MPs. They are making politics unattractive by politicizing every issue. Opposition does not mean exploiting every tragedy for political gain. At a time when lives have been lost to flooding, Ghanaians deserve empathy and solutions, not reckless criticism. Musa Abatwa sent us that from Asawasi. A lot of messages. Let me do one on Facebook and then we'll be done. Mohammed Misbahuddin says, good submission by Professor Seidu Mohammed in, okay, so you're writing from Techiman. Baseman Adam says, we emptied the contingency fund to pump into a senseless hole and call it a certain contingency vote because it was without parliamentary approval. This government managed to rebuild that account within this short time, but the apostles of falsehood, as usual, complaining about the quantum of the release of relief activities, they lack the moral justification. And lastly, Badu Kwame says, National Day of Prayer is simply waste of time. All right, a lot of messages. I wish I could read more. Prof, thank you so much for your time this morning. Comrade Pratt, thank you for your timing. And Uncle, thank you for passing.
PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.